I just said, line IRS employees in Cincinnati improperly scrutinizing 501c4 organizations by using words like Tea Party in quotes and Patriot.
You're saying no corruption?
No.
None.
No, there were some boneheaded decisions out of a
but no
office.
Mass corruption.
Not even mass corruption, not even a smidgen of corruption.
Okay.
It was Jay Carney who perpetuated the myth that it was 2 rogue agents in Ohio. It wasn't any of us.
When you look at the president, his own remarks, when this IRS scandal unfolded almost a year ago, he said that he would fully cooperate, he and his administration. They've not only not fully cooperated, they haven't done a damn thing to help us get to the truth of what really happened.
Well, the hearings continue about the IRS emails that have since disappeared. Newest Fox poll asks a couple of questions. One, should Congress continue to investigate the IRS until someone is held accountable? You can see 74% of those polled say yes, and that's up from April at 67%. Also, the IRS targeting and VA scandals, did President Obama really learn about those in the news? And there you see the breakdown, 31% yes, 60% no. Let's bring in our panel. Syndicated columnist George Will, Juan Williams, columnist with The Hill, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Okay, Charles.
Well, I think this is very serious, and the only reason the administration is not getting pilloried on this is because of the press. If you contrast this, even Mark Halperin talked about this morning, who was hardly a right-wing zealot, said that if this were a Republican president, this would be screaming headlines. They're using the IRS as an instrument corruptly to harass organizations of the opposite ideology and party. And then what's gone on ever since, which is the slow walk and the stonewall and the delay. Either on the one hand, the best interpretation is that this is rank incompetence, the losing of these records, in which case you add it to the VA scandal and others, and you have the party of government, the Democrats, and who pretend to want to run health care, who want to run everything, exposed as totally unable to do that, and the government truly discredited. So either it's incompetence, which undermines the whole idea of big government, or it is corruption with a president who pretends without any evidence there wasn't a smidgen of corruption. I think this really is a serious issue. In the absence of a special prosecutor, we may never know. And I return again, give Lois Lerner immunity so she has to tell the truth. That may be the only way we'll find out.
One official from the National Archives testified about this. He was asked whether the IRS broke the law.
At any time in 2011, through last Monday, did the IRS report any loss of records related to Lois Lerner?
No.
Is it fair to say that the IRS broke the Federal Records Act?
They're required, any agency is required to notify us when they realize they have a problem that could be destruction or disposal, unauthorized disposal.
But they didn't do that.
That's right.
If they didn't follow it, can we safely assume they broke the law?
They did not follow the law.
Juan.
They didn't follow the law, but at this point, we're in the weeds. I mean, we're just looking like, we're far, far away from the primary allegation, which is a deeply concerning one, which you have the IRS targeting political opponents of the incumbent party, the White House incumbent. That's a serious charge. We've now had 2 House investigations. We've had these investigations. We had one last week. We had one Monday night in prime time for the TV audience. We've had the Inspector General. So far, no evidence of any criminal act.
Yeah, but a lack of evidence.
What?
A lack of evidence. The emails are missing.
There's some emails missing, but remember, you've got 24,000 emails. You've got 700,000 documents made available. So that's all there. The question is, and I think this is what you saw today from Darrell Issa at House Oversight. Issa was going to the White House attorney, his assistant, Jennifer Eggleston, and saying she had worked previously at IRS. Did the White House know of anything going on with these missing emails? Did they communicate it then to people of justice? Was there a dance, an orchestration that would suggest there was a conspiracy, a political conspiracy by the Democrats against the Republicans? She said she didn't see any such thing while she was at IRS, and that she, in terms of her time at the White House, she got there when the current White House counsel got there.
George.
That there was targeting of these groups is not disputed. The president has apologized for it. The IRS has in their way apologized. The question that makes this interesting, and the question that a special prosecutor would pursue, is where does this lead? How high up does it go? It's gone from Cincinnati to the IRS, and now it's stopped. Why? People say, well, there's nothing that's connected this to the White House. Let's go back to Watergate for just a moment. The Watergate scandal began because one of the burglars in the Watergate building was connected to the committee to re-elect the president. It never would have got to Nixon but for the tapes that showed Richard Nixon plotting obstruction of justice in the Oval Office. Now, if Richard Nixon had done what John Connally and others recommended that he do, that he burn the tapes, he would have retired, he would have served his full term. Something equivalent to burning the tapes may have happened with the hard drive of Lois Lerner.
I mean, Juan, it is fair to say, looking at those sound bites that we just listened to, that Jay Carney was wrong when he said 2 rogue agents in Cincinnati were responsible for this, and the president was wrong when he said it was boneheaded decisions out of a local office, and then he went on to say there's not even a smidgen of corruption.
Well, again, it's a difference between boneheaded decisions.
We've seen the emails that take it to Washington.
Yes, but what we're seeing is that there was oversight. They're trying to figure out how to make sure that these Tea Party, Tea Patriot, these various new groups don't abuse IRS regulations in terms of claiming that they are nonprofits and tax exempt. And they then, I think, took a shortcut, is what we know for the record, that they made bad decisions and said we're going to flag anything that's called Tea Party and Patriot and et cetera. This whole idea that we're now to Watergate and burning tapes, I mean, that's quite a leap for me.
It's a leap when 6, not only Lois Lerner's hard drive crashes, 10 days after they get the letter from Dave Camp, the chairman of the appropriate committee, but 6 others do, including those of the person who was the chief of staff to the IRS commissioner who was fired. And you know what the response to this is? Charles talks about the incompetence demonstrated here, and that's the default explanation of what government does a lot of the time. But the beauty of this, it's an almost elegant thing. Commissioner Koskinen has said, as the perfect bureaucrat would, that all of this is evidence that the IRS needs a bigger appropriation so it can get better computers.
But that's what Nancy Pelosi said. Her answer to a corruption scandal, a missing evidence scandal, is we need better technology, more money. That's the default answer of a liberal to every issue involving government.
Let me interrupt you for a second. When people say this smells fishy, that it looks bad, doesn't it counter directly Democrats who are saying this is all in the minds of Republicans? Don't the people at home who say, wait a second, this doesn't really make sense to me, don't they count for something?
This requires an extremely improbable degree of coincidence. 6 computers, hers goes down, nobody can locate it, there's no reporting of it. And all of us know from our own experience that emails never die. All of a sudden, these have died precisely. You say there were tons of emails that were released. Yes, but these are the ones precisely that would connect the IRS with other agencies.
You don't know that, Charles.
Well, no, but that's how they were tagged. That's how.
No, Charles.
These are the ones that they are looking for, the ones that went outside the IRS. And that's exactly what they're looking for. You talk about the IRS in a boneheaded way, sort of not getting right the investigation of whether the groups went over the line about the 501c4. No, this is a deliberate attempt by the administration to sideline these politically conservative groups in the days
you don't have, as the president said, you don't have an iota of proof.
All right, but wait a second. What about any agency
hold hearings? Nothing.
Any agency.
The IRS,
hold on one second.
the IG has said yes, it was politically motivated, but no outside influence and no evidence of corruption.
And so when the National Archivist says any agency is required to notify us when they realize they have a problem, when they realize that they've lost email,
I just don't think
it's against the federal records.
That's not what we're here talking about. We're talking about if the IRS was being used to punish political opponents.
There would have been no evidence of Richard Nixon's involvement in obstruction of justice if his tapes had suffered the same fate that Lois Lerner's hard drive has suffered.
Look, the fact that they targeted Tea Party is evidence, irrefutable evidence. They were going after certain political groups. all of the same ideology. And you're telling me it was a coincidence. Rubbish.
Next up, new information on just how dangerous the Iraq crisis is becoming.